So this video is going to be something a bit different for you. It's going to be a bit of an install and a more technical video, if you can even call it that. So we're going to be installing a lift kit, and yeah, just something a bit different from the other videos that we've put out recently. What's going on YouTube and Symmetry 4-wheel drive fans? Today we are putting a 40mm lift kit from Ironman on the Pajero back here. So me and Brad are going to give this a go at installing this lift kit. That's going to be rear springs with a 40mm lift, and then the torsion bars at the front. Those are upgraded torsion bars, upgraded and uprated, and we're going to re-index those and get the height right on the front there. So let's jump into it. I've been wanting to do this on the car for a while, and I just jumped at it today and thought, let's get this stuff on and let's have a look at how it turns out. I've watched a bunch of videos, I've done this sort of thing before, so it shouldn't be an issue, but you know, famous last words, we'll check how that actually goes. So we have chucked up the wheels here, just to make sure the car doesn't roll when we lift it up at the back. This should be something you always do when lifting your car, working on it, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. We've also put the car in gear in 4 low, just in case. So safety first, we're just going to make sure that everything's set before cracking off these rear wheel nuts, taking off the rear wheels, or first just loosening it and then jacking up the rear of the car. So we got the car on jack stands now. The next thing we're going to do is just take off this handbrake line, just the mount for it, and get that out the way, and then undo the shocks at the top so that we can fully articulate down this axle to get the spring out. So on either side there is a bracket here with the handbrake cable, and we can just undo those just to not put too much tension on those when we drop the axle to get the spring out. So we managed to drop the axle and loosen everything that we had to, and we got the one side spring out. So now we are going to do it on the other side, or maybe first put in another spring and then do the other side. That's where we're at right now. So we got the spring on this side, and now we're just moving around to the other side to get that spring on, and then put it under some weight so that it seats properly, and then tighten everything back up. So now it's just that normal struggle of getting the spring on this side now. Just giving it a little clean of all the dirt and dust. You just got to watch for that brake line. It comes under some tension, and then also if your Pajero has a locker at the rear like these blister fenders, then that's the air line for the locker that can also come under some tension. So you just got to be careful when you're lowering the axle to not put too much tension on those. So we've got the second spring on. So now what we need to do is reverse all of our steps, and we're going to start with the shocks and tighten those and put those on, and then from the shocks we're going to reattach the brackets, put the wheels on, and then get it back under its own weight. And once we've done that, we will see what it looks like. So whilst we are here with the Pajero, there's a little nugget gem rolling past here. That's quite nice looking. You want a lift kit? So one slight change from yesterday is we had supposed Ironman springs that we mentioned were going to fit on here, and somehow they didn't look right. I bought them second hand and they didn't look like they were right to fit in the spring perches on this car. So I just said screw it and went straight ahead with the Patrol springs that I had for the car. So that's a set of rear springs on a GQ Patrol Y60, and I put those in the car and I got some massive lift out of that, as you can see. So today's mission is to balance out the car's ride at the front by re-indexing and readjusting the front torsion bars. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown on the procedure of installing your rear springs on a Pajero here. This is a Gen 2.5 or Gen 2 Pajero. So first part of the procedure is to undo do or loosen all of your wheel nuts, your lug nuts, and once those are loosened on both sides of the car, you will then jack up the car under the rear diff there. And once you have jacked it and put it on axle stands and it's secure and safe, then you can proceed to taking off the wheels completely. Once the wheels are off completely, you can then loosen your shock at the top here. I just want to make that a bit brighter. So this nut at the top, try focus there, so that one over here, you will loosen that at the top to loosen your shock, and that will be able to assist in flexing your axle so you can get the spring out. Then you will also, over here, there are some brackets that hold your handbrake lines and things like that, your brake lines and sensors. You will remove these brackets just so that you won't put them under too much tension when you are flexing the axle and trying to get the springs out. So like I said, you remove the shock at the top, the nut holding the shock in at the top, so your shock is loose. Then you'll remove these brackets. You do this on both sides of the car, and then once that is done, you can start flexing the axle. And what you will want to do is place a jack anywhere you can on this radius arm at the rear here, this radius arm. You'll want to place a jack in between that and then on the chassis, so that you can flex down the side of the axle, and then you will be able to pull the spring out. Then once that is out, you can then place your new spring in the perch there, and once you put the new spring in, then you can just reverse this process that we just mentioned now. So that in a nutshell is what it takes to put in your rear springs. It's not the biggest job. You can do it by yourself, but an extra set of hands are handy. And yeah, that's about all you need to undo at the rear here. You just need to watch out. I just want to see if I can get the camera in here. So there are some lines here, and also I think this is the breather line over here. So these lines you want to just watch out for when you're articulating the rear axle there and putting your springs on, as well as some of these handbrake lines over here and the brake lines, just so that you don't overextend it and put too much stress on those lines. It could also be beneficial to take off, or not take off, but just loosen your sway bar on either side on its mounts here, and that might allow you some more articulation. We didn't have to do that, but it's relatively simple and easy to do, and that should also help you a bit should you require that. We've got the car jacked up on its stands so that the suspension is off of the ground and just sagging under its own weight there. And now we can start with the rest of the adjustment of the torsion bars here. So the other thing we did whilst the car was on the ground was just take off the lock nut. So we just took the lock off of the nut over the, or we didn't take the lock off the nut. We took the lock nut off of the bolt for the receiver here for the torsion bar just whilst it was still on the ground, and then we are gonna take those off now, 17 spanners, and then ReIndex and readjust. So I don't know if you can see there, we've taken off the bolt for this housing at the back of the torsion bar, and that is, we're terribly out of focus here. That is now allowing us to re-index the front, and then we will adjust this at the back. So our next step in the process here is removing our torsion bar. You can see how that runs to the front of the car there. So I needed to remove, or I didn't need to, I wanted to replace my torsion bars with the Ironman uprated units. So I removed it completely and swapped it out from the factory one to this Ironman unit. And if we don't swap them completely, it's a very simple process of re-indexing and adjusting those to get the lift that you want. I just swapped it out completely. So where we begin with changing the torsion bars here is, you'll see there are two nuts on top of the bolt that tightens and holds the torsion bars in place. Mine look a bit different because I swapped those out from the factory bolts, but basically what you will do is take off this top nut, which is the lock nut, and then that will allow you to then loosen the actual holding nut below that, and then you will be able to take off your torsion bar. So on this receiver, you will undo it with a 17 spanner or breaker bar or whatever you have there. You will need something strong, and then also holding just on the top there on that nut, and that is on both sides. You can see the other one over here as well, so that's for either side, the torsion bars. So what you will do is loosen that bolt off, then this arm will pivot down, that will pivot down here, that housing receiver, and then your torsion bar will not have its torsional load put on it anymore, so that will be loose, and then you can slide it out the front and re-index. I'll explain what that is now. So you can see this boot here, you can basically pull this back. Mine would be greased right now. You'll pull that back and you'll see the splines on the receiving end, this bracket, and then the splines on the torsion bar itself, and those will be in a specific orientation to put the right amount of torsion on the bar to give you the lift you want. And then if we go to the front of the car, that will also be the case. I'll just show you that now. So here at the front of the car is the other end of the torsion bar. You'll again just pull this boot back, and then the spline section of the torsion bar will go into that receiver, and it will be marked out on the torsion bar and on the housing of the receiver itself. There will be a little notch in it, and that's how you will know where you are. And then if you want to index the bar, which is putting more torsion on it, which in turn lifts your car a bit higher, you will be rotating towards the middle or the inside of the car. So not the outside of the car, the inside of the car, that way. So you will be turning it either 1 or 2 splines towards the inside of the car, and that will put more torsion on the torsion bar and then lift your vehicle in turn. If you can't get enough lift by adjusting that nut and bolt at the rear on that receiver. So you'll index both sides, either 1 spline, 2 spline, 3 maybe at most. Most people recommend up to 2 splines, and then that will be what re-indexing is. So you can also see the torsion bar on that other side of the car there. You are always indexing towards the inside or the middle of the car, otherwise you will just be taking torsion out of the bars and your car will sit lower. So if you want your car higher, turn it a spline towards the inside of the car. If you want your car lower, you turn it a spline outside of the car. So you'll see the markings on the torsion bar and the receiver there, and then that is how you will do your indexing at the front here. That's quite a simple process. So you just slide the torsion bar out, turn it a spline or 2, and then put it back into the receiver in that receiving spline, and quite simply done. So when people talk about cranking up the torsion bars, they talk about tightening this bolt that we see here, and basically that is putting more tension on this bracket holding the torsion bar, so that will go more up into this cross member, and that will basically give you a bit more lift. So when people talk about just cranking up or adjusting their torsion bar, that will be on this mid end of the car or the rear of the car where this is, and that will be where you do your fine adjustments on the torsion bar. So that will just be tightening this to gain more lift or loosening it to drop the car down a bit at the front. And that's quite a simple process. Maybe you don't need to index your torsion bars or re-index them, maybe you just need a bit of adjustment that you do on this bolt here. So that is quite simply what you do to adjust your torsion bars, is just tighten or loosen this bolt at the back here. When you are doing any sort of adjustment on your torsion bars, you want to have the front of the car lifted with the wheels off the ground, because that will mean that no unequal load is on the torsion bar, so you can do your fine adjustment properly. Then to check how they come out, you'll have to drop the car back onto its own weight and roll it back and forth a little bit, just so the suspension settles, and then you will be able to see what your adjustments did. So when you're doing the adjustment, the car must be in the air at the front with the wheels on full droop and hanging in the air. And then when you want to see what your adjustments have done, you need to put the car back on the ground and just let the suspension settle by moving the car a bit. So driving a bit forward, backwards on the brakes, and that will allow you then to check how your adjustments have come out. There are no special tools or anything like that required for the rear spring install or the front torsion bar adjustments and re-indexing. You can do it with a very simple hand tool set, and like I mentioned, the extra set of hands is helpful, but you can do it completely by yourself. It's not overly complicated on this car. It's actually really easy to gain some lift on it. I mean, at the back you can put in taller springs, like I put in the GQ Patrol springs, or you can even put in a spring spacer just to give you that extra height on your spring. And then at the front, it's just about either re-indexing your OEM torsion bars or getting some stuff on the ones and cranking those up a bit just to gain that extra lift. And that is a very simple way to lift the Pajero. And then the other alternative is a body lift, which we may be looking at in the future at some point for some bigger tires, but that's a story for another day. So what is the outcome of the lift kit? Let's have a look. So first up with the car, I think that it's looking great at the moment. I think that lift really added a whole nother dimension to the car, and it's looking a lot more chunky, a lot more beefy, looks ready to hit the trails. And yeah, just that 70mm lift in the rear and that 50mm lift in the front, it is looking really good in my opinion, makes a big visual difference to the car. Then in terms of handling, the rear GQ Patrol springs, they are nice and soft. They carry load. I always have a constant load at the back of my car, and they carry that load really well, and they're also nice and soft and give the car a good amount of articulation, and also just feel really comfortable on the road and off-road as well. And at the front, those Ironman torsion bars are just indexed 1 spline, and they are just cranked to the right height, and I must say, even without a bull bar or winch or extra weight at the front, they are really comfortable and really good so far. So overall, with the performance of it, I'm really happy in that aspect of the lift. the ride off-road was really good, and the performance that it gave me and the confidence that it gave me, I would highly recommend it, because it just made the car feel so much better going over big rocks and big ruts and things like that. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and maybe it even helped you, I hope, if you're looking to do something similar on your car. And yeah, thank you very much. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe please if you haven't before, and we'll see you again for some more Symmetry 4-wheel drive content. Cheers.